Dicko, mate, it's here. It's here.
The
The
penultimate
pre
round.
the prelims are on, and it's the Bronx versus the Panthers. You couldn't have written the script any better, could you?
No, as usual, it divides us at this time of year.
How good is it? And yes, for those listening and watching, we will be at the game, and we will be on opposing sides. We're going to have to make up some sort of punishment for the loser, I
We should.
reckon.
Uh,
We'll bring that to the
yeah.
people's attention post the potty. If anyone's got any suggestions, throw them forward. Far out. Well, what a week. What a week. A weekend of footy. Raiders out in straight sets. Who would have
Yeah.
thought? I certainly didn't pick that one.
Disappointing, wasn't it? It was
Mm.
you could tell that qualifying final loss really took it out of them. I think
Yeah, they were
mentally, and they were very ordinary, very
struggling.
ordinary. I think it's probably their worst performance all year, to be honest.
Yeah, it was, and they just you could tell their experience really sort of let them down in big
Mm,
finals games. And I
mm.
didn't think that Ethan Strange was going to be such a massive loss, but geez, they looked lost in attack.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Here's a
had
mate.
no creativity at all.
It turned out that was a huge out, wasn't it? That was
Mm.
so the speed that he has and what he's able to create with that speed. That looks a bit pedestrian, to be honest with you.
And the
I
other the
thought,
play like KO Weeks was very, very quiet.
yeah, as
Uh,
I said, I think that loss to the Broncos just really took it out of him mentally. And I listened to an interview with Ricky Stewart, and he said Monday they had their presentation night, I think, on the Monday night, and
mm.
he said they were really really disappointed on that Monday night. I mean, that Monday and Monday night, but they turned up to training. He said in a really good mood on Tuesday. So, but obviously it was just a bridge too far.
It is definitely a game of inches. It comes down to, if they have get that result against the Bronx, they've got a week off. They're going into a prelim right now.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? They won the game twice against Brisbane, and now they're out. It's it's
Yeah.
it's amazing how it sort of, and as you said, literally inches, right? Inches if no contact's made to a leg of a field goal, and then if the pinky touch from young Stewart on the wing, that
Oh,
creates the knock on, So it's just, yeah, you're right. It's a game of inches. So, and that's what these games will come down to. It'll be a moment here or a moment
yeah.
there that'll win you or lose you the game.
And what about the Sharkies? Like, tell you what, and I'm going to apologise to all the Sharks fans out there
So
and
you should.
and to Nico Hines.
So you should.
Um, well done, and you know, stepped up when it mattered. Literally scored a try, set up one in a really crucial part of the game, and the Sharks really dominated in most aspects of the game. And as the game went on, which is scary, and we're going to get to the preview of Melbourne and the Sharks, soon, but they actually look all right.
Mm,
Everyone had written them off, including us, and
mm,
they're one game away from a granny here, with every bit of chance,
yeah.
even it being in Melbourne. But we'll analyse that very shortly. Now, the Bulldogs, on the other hand, Dick, I know you got a bit to say there. Look, I'm not going to comment too much on the game. Obviously, I'm a Penrith fan. Very impressive first half.
Was.
Did they pull up stumps a little bit, or was there a bit of shakiness there defensively? I'm not really sure, but I'll definitely comment on some areas where we need to improve if we're going to beat the Broncos this week. But what do you make of the Dogs?
I thought the Dogs played into the Panthers' hands in terms of, like, in the first half. I said, and I will say it'll be the same for my preview for the Broncos. If you want to get into an arm wrestle with Penrith, you may as well pack your bags and go home. All right. They are happy to play set for set, kick to corners, and back their defense. This is what they do. You are not going to challenge them unless you throw the football around
Mm.
and you run hard and make meters. right? And I thought the Bulldogs were just happy to get in that set for set early on. They had an opportunity to put some points on the board, and they decided to take the penalty kick.
I
Now I
was
know it,
just thinking that.
and I know it's
Yeah.
a final, but they weren't. They basically weren't in Penrith's half for the rest of the first half.
It's a different story if it's 16 all and you get a penalty in front, but not 5, 10 minutes into a game, take the two.
And yeah, and as I said, they didn't get back into Penrith's half pretty much. They were literally trudging off their own line pretty much the whole half. So I just think you are destined to fail against this team if you are going to go set for set and play field position against them, because that is what they do. They do it better than anyone. They don't drop the ball. They're very structured in their attack when it's set for set footy. And you watch Cleary, you watch him kick. He every kick is purposeful. He's not just bombing it up to see what happens. Every kick he does is purposeful. Whether it's into the corner, trying to pin him down on tackle 0 in the corner, and therefore you got your winger trying to come out, and you can rush your defenders up, right? So every kick he does is purposeful. You can't go with them this way. And I felt the Bulldogs just fell into the trap of doing that. In the second half, conversely, when they started to play a little bit of footy, and again, it comes to your point of, did the Panthers switch off a little bit? And I probably think they did. They're up, 36-6 at halftime or whatever it was. So I think there was an element of they probably switched off, and you probably withdraw a little bit because you don't want to get injured and miss the. You're going to win, but when the Dogs actually challenged them by short passes and second phase and offloads
Yeah, absolutely.
and that, there is points. And
Yeah.
I have, and people listening won't believe me, but I have been banging on about this for dead set 18 months. You have to throw the footy around, but with that comes risk, right?
Hmm.
And if you drop the ball and you give field position away, they're not going to give it back to you very easily. So unfortunately, the game to beat them is a very risky game.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I thought the Dogs overachieved a little bit. I thought, as I've said on our podcast, I thought they shot themselves in the foot when they dropped Reid Marnie and brought Lachlan Galvin in. I didn't think that was a great move at all. I think they were, what were they, 8-1 or something when Galvin came in on
Well, then
top of
I
the
feel sorry
table.
for Reid Marnie. Like he's had, 5 or 6 weeks out of the starting lineup, who
Yeah.
hasn't been match fit hardened, and you throw him up against the best arm wrestlers in the comp.
Yeah, and I think they finished the season 6 wins and 8 losses with Galvin in the team. So it just
I read a stat, his record with the Tigers this year was better than that.
yeah,
Bulldogs.
it
So
is.
Tigers fans will be cheering about that one.
So I don't, if you're the Bulldogs, you're going to take the opportunity to probably sign him. He's probably the most talked about young half in the
Yeah.
competition. Probably got a bright future, what everyone thinks anyway. So you're going to take the opportunity to definitely sign him. But I just didn't like the way they incorporated him in the team. And if I reckon if you sat every player down and you asked them, what would they do different about the season, I reckon you'd probably get most of them said, look, I really think we should have maybe kept him on the bench, or we should have persisted with Sexton as the halfback and Marnie as the 9, regardless of whether they're leaving or not. Like, I just thought, yeah, they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. What I really liked about Penrith, which I hadn't seen for most of the year, is yes, we sort of played that set for set typical grind, but I thought that a few times this year we've probably tried to arm wrestle a bit too much and haven't been ruthless. And I think on the weekend you saw ruthless because their attack wasn't anything fancy, but I think what I notice anyway, and obviously bias opinion, is I believe that Penrith has the most, that they're definitely the most structured team in the comp, but it's very rare that when you get into attacking opportunities that, most teams play sort of off the cuff footy, and, rarely is there sort of set place tries, only when it's sort of like out the back of shape plays with the fullback included. But Penrith, you sort of didn't really know where they were going to go out the back short ball, but every Penrith player knew exactly what was going on. There wasn't any sort of lucky bounce tries. There was none of, that most of the players, honestly, which I'm excited about, but also, hope we haven't peaked too early sort of thing. Everyone was probably had their best game of the year
Mm.
on the weekend. So yeah, I'm really excited going into this weekend, but yeah, boy oh boy, we're gonna dissect that game because I will give the Broncos a few tips. So maybe Maguire's listening. Hopefully he is. But what we're going to do, we're going to get into a bit of other news, Dicko, before we preview that. Victor Radley obviously has been handed his suspension, which is being talked about. But what I really want to talk about, Dicko, is his suspension in comparison to others and what they've been suspended for. And whether there's this, I don't know, hierarchy of the better the player, the lower the suspension. I'm not sure whether that comes into play, but it certainly looks that way. Uh, Reece Walsh in 2021 was arrested and actually had cocaine in his possession and was suspended for 0 games and got a $400 fine. Victor Radley was sending a text message about cocaine and got 10 games plus a substantial fine. Um, you've got the Ezra Mam situation, which I won't shed too much light on, but everyone knows the situation there. 9 week suspension. And I think 99 people out of 100 would consider Ezra Mam's offence way more significant than what Victor Radley's done. Is it an overreaction from the Roosters?
So what's interesting is they're all club imposed bans, right? So
Yeah.
you're never going to get the same. So that's
Yeah.
that's the first thing. They're all club imposed. So the problem with the Roosters suspending Radley is that Nick Politis
Yeah.
has carried on that they have a no drug policy.
Yeah.
So it was always going to be if they decided to keep him,
It's going to be hefty.
it was going to be hefty because he has to try and backtrack from that statement that he made, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So all reports are he wanted him gone, and Trent Robinson's effectively gone, hang on a second. Well, no, this is what we're going to propose and whatever. But I think if Politis potentially doesn't have that stance, Radley doesn't get the same suspension and fine.
Mm.
But he has to go harsh because he's already said he has a zero tolerance to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, it totally makes sense. I'm having a
But if you're comparing to other incidents, yeah, it doesn't marry up.
yeah.
None of it marries up.
Look, and this is where I think that should clubs, obviously the clubs want to have a say on their stances and whatnot, and it sets a precedence and whatever. But I mean, Valentine Holmes was photographed with bag in his mouth and got a $50,000 fine and 1 week.
Well, the NRL has to do it, mate.
Yeah, that's
They
what I
hold
mean.
the
Like
players hold a contract with the NRL,
the
right?
clubs shouldn't be because the club in this situation with the Roosters has gone, okay, we've come out and had this policy in place, so we don't want to look like idiots. So we're going to impose this massive ban on Radley to justify, what we've said prior. And then other clubs are like, well, we don't want our best player suspended for very long. So we'll let the court and the NRL do whatever they need to do. And we'll make sure that our ban is
Mm.
going to sort of, at the time, look okay. But
Well, that's
on
right.
paper now,
The
it looks
club,
terrible.
well, the clubs are hoping that the NRL don't actually make a decision so that the clubs can and they can do whatever they want effectively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the NRL need to grow a spine and actually, they're the ones who are effectively the employer because they sign an NRL contract, right? So
And I think the club's um, punishment should be more community orientated.
I agree, absolutely.
I
Like,
think that's when you'll actually hit home with a player because yeah, there's financial implications of Radley's suspension, but there's all these loopholes in there as well,
Yeah,
which is just a joke.
which is which is why they've done it, mate. So they
And
can get 150K off the books and sign another player.
and arguably, let's be honest, Victor Radley, in my opinion, I actually don't even think he's in their top 13. I genuinely believe he's not in their top 13 anymore.
Mm. He's a
And
bit of a liability
whether
these
that's
days.
got to do with the head knocks, the suspensions,
Mm.
combination of both, or just generally as a player, his sort of,
Mm.
talent isn't as good as where it probably should be. And
Yeah.
maybe those two previous things I've mentioned have a bit to do with it. But yeah, I don't know. I just,
It doesn't marry up, but you're never going to get consistency if you're leaving it up to the clubs. Because as you said, Reece Walsh is going to be looked at completely different. If I'm talking about the Broncos here, Reece Walsh is your number one player on your roster is going to be looked at completely different to your number 30, who might be Corey Pakes. Does that make sense?
yep,
It's going to be looked
yep,
at completely different. All right. So when you leave it to the clubs, you're going to have bias on talent. But if
yep.
you leave it to the NRL and the NRL actually grows a spine and makes a decision like they should as an employer, right? Then they take all that bias out of it and actually act in the best interest of the game is what should be happening.
Which is exactly what should be happening. But yeah, it's very interesting yeah, it sort of leaves everyone sort of divided. Roosters fans will be,
I thought it was harsh. Like I initially, when I
yeah,
read it, I thought, geez, it's harsh for that. But as I said, it's a combination of club imposed ban. They have a zero tolerance. They've kept him. Does that make sense?
well, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting, Dicko. When the punishment from Brandon Smith gets handed out, what's that going to look like?
Well, again, the NRL will probably leave it up to the club who he's employed by.
Well, yeah, but the interesting part is that this has both come from the same incident. So
I know. Yeah,
it's
yeah. I can
really going to
guarantee you.
be
I
interesting.
guarantee you that it'll be completely different. He won't be
Yeah,
getting 9 games. I guarantee it.
and there'll be a massive uproar.
Yeah. Well, you wait for it. It won't.
Uh,
I'll tell you right now. You won't be getting a $50,000 fine.
so you reckon he's going to get less than 10 games?
Absolutely. He'll get less than Radley for sure. For
Oh, this is
sure.
going to be brilliant. Can't wait for it all to unfold.
If what we know is the charge or whatever, and there's nothing else that's hidden that we don't know about, yeah, absolutely, he'll get less. 100%.
Well, we're about to find out not too far away.
That's it.
Um, Now, match review committee, speaking of uh, NRL doing something about
Well, it's not the NRL. They're a
the
separate
game.
entity. Remember,
Well, yeah, look, I know
this
we've
is the
got
problem.
5 different entities here
This is the
involved in
problem.
rugby league. No bunker this week, so we don't need to worry about that. The MRC, there's a couple of incidents in the Bulldogs game. I've seen both of them. They're both fines in the end, both grade 1 contact. But the Snyder one for me, Dicko, and I know you've got a bit to say on it, it was bad.
Mhm.
It was really bad. And to be honest, probably worse than a hip drop.
Well, we were under the illusion from the NRL that the cannonball tackle, is what they call it, because all
Yeah.
tackles now have a name. The cannonball tackle was they were trying to rid it from the game. Now, if I put the definition for a cannonball tackle and a video up, I would put that incident up because that is a clear cannonball to me. He's gone directly into the knees, made contact with a player standing, and it's just opens up for so much serious injury. It's not funny. How Tupanua didn't do his knee,
I actually thought he was injured initially.
I'll never know. Yeah, and all year, and even the last few years, when that has happened, a player's gone straight to the sin bin, and he's
And they've
been
only
great,
copped about 3 or 4 weeks.
and he's been graded accordingly. All right. Now, it just really frustrates me because the illusion now is that I'm sitting here as a Broncos fan coming up against the Panthers, that I'm having a crack because it's a Panthers player. But I said to you before we jumped on, I want the best players playing. I don't want any excuses from anyone. If we get beaten with our best, we get beaten with our best. We get beaten by a better team, right? But
Mm.
now I'm sitting back now as a supporter of my team who's missing one of their best players for an incident that I think is far less risk of injury than what I know they're
Schneider's
two separate
way
things.
worse than Paddy Carrigan.
Yeah, and I know they're two separate things. One's a high shot, one's a cannonball. But what I'm saying is that risk, if you're looking at pure risk of injury, the Schneider's one is way worse. And it's a tackle they want to get rid of.
Well, it's very contradictory to what the match review and the NRL are trying to implement here. Because if they're judging it on that and that alone, which is what they're trying to eradicate, it doesn't make sense that Snyder gets a fine and Carrigan gets a suspension.
Yeah,
It actually doesn't make sense.
no, that's right. Again, they're the same charge. They're dangerous contact, but one's a grade 2 and one's a grade 1. Now, I don't.
I tell you what, if the NRL are going to compare every incident in the comp this year and what got graded what, Abdo's head's going to be spinning, Valan's
Well,
head's going to be spinning, Annesley's head's going to be spinning. They're all just going to not know what's going on.
well, further to it, Cleary was
That's how
charged with
bad it is.
Cleary was charged with, I think, a dangerous contact grade 1, right? And I initially thought penalty. Made contact with the head, penalty. That's fine. I don't think he should. I don't think he should be sitting on the sidelines. I think a fine is definitely sufficient, which they pretty much find any head contact now when they're put on report.
Mm.
But what is the difference between what he did, contact to the head, and Pat Carrigan did? The only difference is Carrigan ran out of the line, and he gets a grade 2 because there's a higher chance of or higher risk of injury, but there wasn't because nothing happened. Like this is what frustrates me. We're literally suspending and penalising for, oh my God, something might happen.
Yeah.
And I would argue in the Carrigan high tackle and even in the Cleary's one, I would argue that both of them, as the defender, the onus is on them to protect the player. I would argue they protected the player. That they could have hit him higher and hit
Mm.
him with more force, but they lowered body height. They made contact with the head. Yes, penalty sufficient. Grab a fine.
And
Whatever.
what makes it super difficult this year is a lot of the suspensions or even a lot of the high tackles. I feel like the players have actually made a conscious effort here. They're not actually hitting them in the head with their arm,
Yeah, it's more sort of
like it
chest, top of
previously would have
chest. Yeah,
happened.
it's more
Yeah.
top of chest.
And because they're trying to lower their body to get out of the way, they're
It's more, yeah.
actually, because
Yeah, I
they're
agree. I agree with you.
literally forcing their arm down versus
100%.
up. Like if they
100%.
were up, they probably would sort of hit them more front on, you know?
But again, look, we're comparing apples and oranges because they're two separate incidents. But again, I'll stress Carrigan was a grade 2 because he ran out of the line. Therefore, they deemed it a high risk of injury. Brad Schneider's was a grade 1. Now, I'll argue with anyone who wants to argue with me that Schneider's has a higher risk of injury to a player than what Pat Carrigan's has. And for
Agreed.
him to only get a grade 1, not even a sin bin in the game, I thought was a joke.
It should have been grade 3.
Grade 2, grade 3, whatever it was, he should have been sin bin for a start because, again, the risk of injury is high and he's put on report, so that warrants a sin binning, and then he should be graded according. But it's just, we're just so worried about, oh my God, there could be an injury that we've got now one of the Broncos' top 4 players sitting out for a tackle that you and I probably think of. If you take your Penrith hat off, you probably look at it and go, you know what, I'd be happy if he just got a fine.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, we just don't want our best player sitting on the sidelines in finals games for incidents where oh my God, it might cause injury, but guess what, it didn't.
Yeah,
You know
well, the
what I mean?
issue is just needs to be ironed out from the match review committee. Like, what's a grade 1? What's a grade 2? What's a grade 3? I don't think priors should matter. Like, I don't think
Oh,
that.
and they don't, and you shouldn't be given another week if you want to fight it either. You should be able to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they need to sort out.
100%. And I
Um,
just hope that, it doesn't cost, I hope none of the players this week, it costs them an
yeah,
appearance in a grand final because,
yeah,
that's going to be the point. If something happens similar to Carrigan, are they going to have the balls to rub a player out for the grand final? And that is what will piss me off if they don't, that stance isn't shown moving forward. And it also gives that argument to the fact that some teams and players are looked after more by, and we all know it's not the case, but
mm,
some teams and players are looked after more by the MRC or the MRP or whatever they call themselves. and the referees. It just gives more fuel to that argument.
Yeah. Well,
Which again, we don't want to have that argument because we know it's not true. But again, it's just another element of it. Like I really think this is just a common sense decision. I don't think it's that hard. Blind Freddie could make the decision for God's sake.
it's uh it's a tough one because you're always going to have two opinions.
Yep.
Well, actually more than two opinions because of how the system's set up. And that's the biggest issue is that the ref has to make a call on the field.
Mm.
Then the bunker could get involved and then the MRC.
Yeah. Well, the
And
MRC needs to be part of the NRL. It's as simple as that. They can't be a separate organisation. That's just ridiculous.
so, yeah, hopefully they sort that out so that there's no more controversy there. Now, for the first time in a while, we've been advertising it for a little bit. But we're going to give it a bit of plug here on the potty. Now, for those who don't know, Club Nostra is well and truly in full swing, absolutely humming at the moment. It's essentially where we give you the latest tips and predictions, extra tips and predictions, plus all the latest goss firsthand before it breaks. We don't necessarily post absolutely everything in the NRL world on our page, only things that we deem relevant. But most of the time, we post them a little bit later once they become official, or sometimes we get a little bit of inside word, bit of inside knowledge on certain topics and issues that people as part of Club Nostra will access early. So what we're doing is we're giving free access to anyone who wants to join that between now and the end of the year. So we'll put up a link at the end of the show and for the remainder of the season, essentially, for people who want to join that group. It's on WhatsApp. So download the app, get amongst it. But we're actually got a couple of questions coming from our Club Nostra group. And an interesting,
Engagement. How good is it?
yeah, an interesting question, Dicko. And I think we'll just probably pick one player from each team that's left. But Adrian's written, who's going to win the Clive?
Oh, that would require me to have pick who's going to be in the grand final.
Yeah, well,
No,
that's why I
okay.
thought
Let's
it'd be
do it
better
from
to
each team.
pick
Yeah, yeah,
from
good
each
idea.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, good idea. Oh, you've really put me on the spot here. I haven't even
Maybe we
thought
could
about
throw a bit
that.
of a spinner in the works there and say if you were to lock someone in for the Clive right now, who would it be?
Okay, I'll go. This will be my theory. If Melbourne were to win the premiership, I think Cameron Munster has to win the Clive Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
If the Sharks were to win the premiership, I think Nico Hines has to win the Clive Churchill. I think that's the only way they win is if he wins. Look how good they were on the weekend when he played well.
Yeah.
Okay. If the Panthers were to win, I think the obvious would be Cleary. I mean, that's just the obvious. I think if the Panthers win, he's probably getting it, right?
Yeah.
Because he's going to play well enough. And if the Broncos were to win, I think Reece Walsh has to win the Clive Churchill. He has to be the best player on the field for the Broncos to win the premiership.
Yeah. And look, I don't want to piggyback off you, but I would have to say the exact same, except for the Sharks. I'm probably locking in Trindle.
Yep.
I just think that although Nico Hines, I believe, will have to play really well
Mm-hmm.
to win at Clive, I think if they're going to win the actual grand final, both of them need to be playing really well. And for that reason, I'd give it to Tricky. Now, just a stab in the dark, Dicko, who's going to win it?
The
Who's
grand
going to win the
final.
Clive? No, who's going to win the Clive? Well, essentially the grand final you're picking as well.
Well,
Um,
my team's still in it, so I'd be an idiot to think the Broncos aren't going to. Broncos Walsh. There you go.
so you're going to lock in Walsh?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I'm going to lock in Cleary. Moving
Oh, so
on.
obvious, isn't it?
Now, this is a really good question from Daniel here. This is revolving around the Penrith and the Broncos game. Who do you think benefits more from continuous ball in play? Penrith, who are generally a grinding, game plan type team, or Broncos, to have a tiring defense for Walsh to capitalise?
So I saw this question on Club Nostro when Daniel wrote this, and I purposely didn't, hoping that you would bring it up tonight. I think we are going to get in all seriousness, I think day footy suits both these teams.
Mm,
If I remove all emotions to this game, and if you're just an NRL observant and
yes.
just want good footy, if you're getting a sunny Suncorp and it won't be too hot here, I'm in Brisbane. You're in Brisbane now too at the moment. Actually, we're both here. It's not too hot. It's perfect for daytime footy, eh?
Yeah.
And there'll be no dew. It'll be dry. It'll be fast. I, I'm sure there's no rain predicted. I don't think it favours one team more than the other. Actually, I think there's elements of both games that really do well in the dry, but I also
Yeah.
think there's elements in both team that will struggle a little bit if the ball's in play for a long period of time.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think, probably analyze it a little bit more, when we talk about the actual game itself. But, he's actually written a follow-up question, which is also quite interesting. Would the Broncos benefit from kicking into touch so all the players for Penrith have to actually get behind to play the ball instead of Penrith doing their typical sort of Edwards, Toto, Alamotti first three tackles, make your typical 30, 40 meters against the broken line?
Yeah, so really interesting because I don't necessarily think the kicking in the touch would benefit, right? So what I'll say is that the first three
You've got to
tackles.
bear in mind is there's no scrum now if you do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, which is why I don't really feel
Yeah.
it's
I
just a
don't
quick
know.
play the ball. No,
Yeah,
because
said it.
if you have a good kick chase, which you're gonna have to have, and which you should have, and you can pin them down. So the first three tackles of your set against Penrith coming out of yardage are your most important tackles because they're the tackles that you got to come up against Edwards, Toto, and potentially Alamotti,
Mm,
right? And they're as he said, they make 30 to 40 meters themselves potentially. Toto makes 20 meters himself in a run. So what I'm saying is that if you really try and dominate the first three tackles of a set, it's irrelevant whether you keep the ball in play or not, I think. But if you're losing field position and you're that might be where you go to that game plan, get the ball out, quick breather, Penrith players then go back behind. Because what I'm saying is they still have to get behind. If your first three tackles are dominant,
of course,
they've
yeah.
still got to get back behind. So you know what I mean? It's
Not
sort
a
of
bad play.
it's not.
It depends what time of the game it is too, and context of scoreboard and all that sort of stuff.
I think if you're worried about that, and if Brisbane are worried about that, they're in real trouble.
Yeah, they're in big trouble. All right, so let's talk about the Storm versus the Sharks before we dive deeper into the preview of Broncos versus Penrith. Because let's be honest, we're probably going to favour that a little bit more naturally.
No, we've got to be impartial, mate.
For
Remember.
the Storm and Sharks fans out there, we'd like to think that we're relatively impartial for most of it. In fact, what I am really impressed about is most people as part of Club Nostra and who message us privately actually ask who we go for. So I think that's a bit of a testament to us remaining as unbiased as we possibly can, at least on our page.
At
Maybe
least for
in
the
person.
preceding 28 games of footy, except
Yeah.
this weekend we're
Well,
fairly
this
biased.
weekend it's very different. The Storm and the Sharks, Dicko. Obviously, it's at Amy Park. The big news, obviously, Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes named to play. Sean Blaw's actually been included on the bench. No real changes for the Sharkies. Unfortunately, Tommy Hazelton succumbed to that concussion, which looked pretty bad actually. Feel sorry for the guy. He literally spent a week and a bit in hospital with the infection in the knee. Talk about infections, by the way, this year. It's been
Yeah, no, it's horrendous.
something's going on there. Um, Look, do you give the Sharks a genuine sniff here?
This is a genuine 50-50. Oh, I mean, I shouldn't say that because I think both of them are actually 50-50 games. But I will tip Melbourne purely because they're at home.
I can't believe the Sharks are paying $3 and the Storm are $1.37.
I hadn't even looked at that, but I like that. But yeah, my tip is purely based on the fact that Melbourne are at home. I don't.
Replay of the 2016 grand final.
I think the Sharks are battle hardened. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder. What's their press conferences been the last few
Yeah.
about how no one rates them. So they're playing with a bit of anger.
And defensively, they're arguably the best team in the comp right now.
They're playing with a bit of anger. And you just said your man Nico Hines, that
They
performance
got
might,
nothing to lose, do they? Really? Like their backs are against the wall. They're sort of playing, the villain, which they are. Let's be honest.
if they can replicate that performance against the Raiders, they win.
I've been saying it all year, mate. I don't think the Storm are that good.
The Storm are very good with Harry Grant in the team. And if
Yeah,
you can
but
shut down Harry Grant, he is the heartbeat on everything Melbourne does. You watch it. You sit back and
look,
everyone listening to this, sit back on Friday night and watch. Whenever Melbourne get a quick play of the ball, I guarantee you Harry Grant runs out of dummy half to the line and look, and he'll have players pushing up next to him for options. You
Well, I
watch
tell
it.
you what is interesting, Dicko, and we spoke about this briefly off air, was we put up a couple of polls with who people thought would win the comp. And surprisingly, but maybe not so surprisingly, most people think it's either going to be out of Penrith or the Broncos, depending on who wins this weekend. And I have to agree, even without bias, like to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The but yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm not convinced on the Storm.
I thought the Storm were patchy against the Dogs in the first final. They were lucky to get away with it. What I will say is they were lucky to get away with that game. Although it was 26-18, I think at the end, they were
Here it is.
lucky.
This is my analysis for the game. You ready? Pappenhausen plays well, Storm win. Pappenhausen doesn't play well, they lose.
Mm,
And he hasn't had a good game for a long time. So he's overdue.
mm.
But oh,
I give the Sharks a genuine chance.
they're going to have to be good, right? Harry Grant can only do so much. So their attack's going to have to be good. What I am a little bit worried about with the Storm is, and I think it's a little bit harsh, but I understand the selection. Grant Anderson has arguably been their best back all year.
They're going with Jack Howarth.
And he's in jersey 19. And,
Mm,
and most people, including myself and probably you, agree why they've gone with
mm.
Jack Howarth. But, oh, geez, it's harsh.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a big call, but I think if Howarth's fit, he plays because he's a bigger body. He's very solid
Is
defensively.
he underdone, though?
Well, is Jerome Hughes underdone? Is Ryan
Oh,
Pappenhausen underdone? You know what I mean? Like, is half the Melbourne team. They've had a week off. So battle hardened Sharks.
the Shark, do you know what? The Sharks
And
are,
the Sharks have beaten them before in Melbourne.
yeah. And all of a sudden, if Hughes goes down or gets a knock on that wrist,
That's it.
and they're
Yeah.
custard.
Yeah, they're in all
It's their
sorts.
custard.
But you can risk that because you've got Tyron Wishart on the bench. So you can risk that
Mm.
because Harry
And
Grant plays 80.
I really like the Sharks bench.
Yep. Yeah, Nickera. I thought he'd be in the starting team, but he
Like
was excellent off the
Nikora,
bench.
Alakai, Kafusi, and Hemlin Llewellyn. And I honestly think that Hemlin Llewellyn and Talakai's impact through the middle in recent weeks has been fantastic.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. And I think a lot of the Sharks fans would agree with that. And this is obviously a massive contrast to what I've said for a lot of the season. And no, you're right, mate.
It's
I'm leaning towards the Sharks.
well, it's what have we said? We've said the Sharks are mentally fragile when it comes to finals, and whether that win last week just gives them that. Okay, we're actually we're good enough to be here. Whether
Mm.
that, beating Canberra at home, the minor premiers convincingly, I really think it's going to hold them in good stead for Friday night. I give them a massive chance. I'm actually. The more I think about it, the more I want to tip the Sharks, but I won't tip against Melbourne at home. It's all I'm basing my tip off. I
In
think the
fact,
Sharks are a genuine chance.
if you go through 1 to 17, I think you'd almost have, if not even, slightly favouring the Sharks as the better matchups.
One-on-ones, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Particularly the back line of the
Yep.
what concerned me was the forward pack of the Sharks. But in the last few weeks, that impact off the bench has been a game changer. And like to have Britt Nicker on this on the pine to come on
Well,
is
I also think Melbourne have become too sort of fascinated with trying to get Xavier Coates scoring a try
yeah.
because of instead of just playing footy.
And
Uh,
don't forget, Ronaldo Mulatalo is going to be marking him. They're
yeah,
going to switch sides, surely.
yeah. But you know what I mean? They've become too, let's kick it to the corner and see where the Coates or Warbrick can get up instead of just playing footy. So,
Yeah. Or will they? Because Sione Katoa's been defending great. Like he was phenomenal against Daniel Tupu the
yeah,
other week.
yeah.
So maybe they don't switch sides because they've got Warbrick as well there.
No, that's right. Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great game. Like,
Lock in the
th-
Sharks. Lock in the Sharks.
this
Lock
is
in the
what
Sharks.
this is what you want. You want
Yeah.
genuine 50-50 games. This is what you want.
And what I will say, which is sort of, I mean, you like to think every side is sort of humming at this time of year. I would argue that the Storm are the team paddling a little bit out of every team remaining.
I'd probably agree with that. I reckon if you ranked them on teams that are in form, yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I probably think they're the fourth sort of most informed team. I'd probably have the Panthers, Sharks, the Broncos, and the Storm.
What I did find interesting was Cam Munster was interviewed on the Today Show, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've had a pretty average season." They came second, so that just goes to show you the standard that they hold for themselves. But
Mm.
so you're going to go the Storm just purely based on
Purely
home.
based on home, yeah.
Yep, no,
Purely
fair
just
point.
based on home.
Well, I'm locking in the Sharks, mate, and obviously we're going to go very different in this next game.
You're locking in the
No,
Sharks.
they're locked in.
This is a landmark moment here, people.
This
This
is
is
at
a
180.
landmark. He's
Come on,
sprayed him.
Nicholas. Let's go, Sir
He has
Nico.
literally sprayed him for 2 years, and now he's locking him into the
Mate, they
biggest
proved me
game they've
wrong. And
played.
I said on previous podcast episodes, the moment they prove me wrong, I will jump on board and give them the most praise ever. And I'm doing it.
Okay.
I actually apologized on Saturday night at a wedding. Um, Shout out to Jacob. Congratulations on the wedding, mate. Massive Sharks fan, big listener of the show. Uh, Go Nico and go the Sharks. Bring it on.
Can't wait until they make the granny. See what you're going to say about it.
They're going to get pumped.
Uh,
Yeah. All right. Broncos, Panthers, Dicko. Look, genuine analysis of this game.
mhm.
Broncos have to attack the game.
Yep.
Like you said before, if they're going
Couldn't
to
agree more.
get Ryan, Penrith win.
Couldn't agree more. Yep.
Um, Penrith aren't going to make mistakes, or at least you don't think so.
Yep.
Um,
They don't turn over cheap ball.
Look, if Broncos play their natural game, they've got every sniff in the world. In fact, I would, with a home ground advantage, Reece Walsh in lightning form and Ezra Mam coming off the bench with impact, Reynolds coming back into the side. I said to you last week, and I'm going to say it again, two things will stop Broncos not winning this weekend. It'll be too many errors,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, that's the brand they're going to have to play.
Mm-hmm.
High risk footy. Is
Mm-hmm.
those risks going to come off?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, if any team is going to beat Penrith with the style of footy they play, you only have to look at the 2023 grand final
The one that we lost.
performance. Yeah, the 1 year's lost. But when you played that style of footy, you tore us to shreds.
Mm.
And both sides, key players haven't changed defensively and in attack. So the other part is Reynolds going to have a adverse effect on Walsh and what he's done in the last few weeks? Or is he going to look, you've got Ben Hunt. No, I don't know
Yeah.
whether that's going to change. Surely it's not going to change, but there's a lot of chefs in that kitchen.
No,
And
I've
they
toyed.
work together.
Yeah, and I agree to a point with you. I've toyed with this for a little bit about how I would you would hope that a conversation has been had between the
Sure.
coach and Reynolds and said, look, thank you for everything you've done for the last couple of years for this club. But right now, this team revolves around one player. And you need to get him the ball when he wants it. No overcalling him. You give him the ball when he wants it.
And
All
I
I
don't
want.
care what anyone says. Reece Walsh, when he's on, is the best player in the game. Better than Cleary. Way more influential than Cleary.
All Adam Reynolds has to do on Sunday is to make his tackles, and his kicking game needs to be.
Yeah.
He needs to get. It needs to be 95 out of 100. And if he does that, I think the other takes care of itself because Ben Hunt, the way he's been playing, knows when to give Walsh the ball. Right? But I said this to a mate of mine. Penrith are going to know that Reece Walsh is going to come out the back. They need to not do that all the time. They need to give him the ball, which he has been doing over the last few weeks at first receiver, sometimes second receiver. Sometimes he's been taking the ball from dummy half. They literally need to just let him do whatever he wants. Yeah. And you live and die by him. He will win you a game. He could win you a premiership, or he's going to lose as a prelim final.
Yeah, and I think I can't see the Broncos coming out and smashing Penrith, right? I can't see that happening. What I can see happening is one of two things: a tight game that's going to go either way, based on obviously who's better on the day. I can honestly see Broncos making a ton of errors, playing risky football, but that's their style. But they're also going to pull off a couple of crackers. It's going to be Sunday Arvo footy. It's going to be an absolute spectacle, right? The other part that we all know can possibly happen, which I hope doesn't happen genuinely for the sake of the game and for the Broncos fans that will be surrounding me, they can fall in heap if they try too hard.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't.
So I would have said
they got too much experience.
I would have agreed with you about 4 weeks ago. But on the weekend, on the Canberra game, that showed me 11 players, 28, what was it, 28-16 down, and you come back and win.
Yeah.
That showed me that this team is mentally tougher than what it was 2 years ago.
I'm not questioning their grit. I'm more questioning that if they get behind on the scoreboard, just for context of the game, nothing to do with the style of footy they're playing.
Oh, they'll try hard and probably throw it around. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they'll make a few more errors and the game blow out a little bit.
They're going to have to. But that's the nature of what we're just saying. That's the nature of the game. They're going to have to. They're going to have to do something different.
Yeah, from an analytical hat point of view, which I like to try and analyze every game as best as I possibly can for those involved in Club Nostra and those that follow us publicly. That's the two ways I see the game going.
What Penrith, people need to realise that Penrith aren't unbeatable. They are there to be beaten. It's whether your team can put up a performance, whether it's Brisbane or whether it's the grand final next week, or even the Bulldogs last week. It's whether you can muster a performance that's going to challenge them. All right? Yeah. And so far, they just haven't been challenged in this final series. And they haven't. They've got that. And if I'm honest, they've got the two most out of form teams in the top 8 going into the finals, I would say.
Yep.
Right? So
they've had an easy run.
Although they're physical games, not a lot has been thrown at them when it was in the second half. And again, whether they switched off a little bit, the Broncos' attack is going to be a hell of a lot better than what the Bulldogs dished up on the weekend. And there was some areas of concern, and you should be buoyed if you're a Broncos supporter where they might be able to get them. The Katoni Staggs, Casey McLean matchup, I think, is probably the most important matchup on the field. Because if Brisbane can get him early ball, and I reckon he's been the most informed centre in the comp in the last 6 weeks. He's been unbelievable. And Casey McLean's injured. He's got a hip pointer, and they are painful. Right? And if you can get him one-on-one, Katoni Staggs with McLean, as good as that young kid is and is going to be, I think there's some points there for Brisbane. But again, you've got to get yourselves in a position where you're actually able to attack. If the Broncos just sit back and want to grind it out, it's going to be a very boring watch because they're going to get just carved up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I honestly think it's going to be an unbelievable spectacle. It's right there. It's Bronx are at home. I'm disappointed. I said this off air. I'm actually disappointed this isn't the grand final. Not just because they're our two teams. I genuinely believe that this should be the grand final.
Oh, I said this to you before. I think whoever wins this game wins the grand final. It's as simple as that. Like I feel like they're the two best teams left when they're playing at their absolute best. So my question to
Yeah.
you is, and this is a question without notice.
Whose ceiling's the highest?
Well, what Penrith dished up last week was almost perfect, pretty much. And what Brisbane dished up in the last 16 minutes against the Raiders, if Brisbane can dish that up for the majority of the game and Penrith can dish up what they dished up in the first half for the majority of the game, who wins if they both play at that level?
Oh, jeez. Who can kick the better field goals?
No, seriously. Well, that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. That's how close it is. And
Yeah.
let's hope that both teams play to their limit,
Yeah.
right? Because I really think that either team's not that far off each other.
And there's a lot of mismatches all over the park as well. Like, certain players are, this is even as. And in fact, but obviously both prelims are going to be exciting. And I'll tell you what is interesting, Dicko. The team that plays on Friday night gets an extra 2 days rest. Do you think that
Yeah.
do you think that matters a lot?
Look, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I really do. Because if you think about it, so you play Friday night, you go into recovery on Saturday, you have Sunday off, you start training Monday. You play Sunday, Arvo, you go straight in recovery on Monday, you need a day off Tuesday, you're probably not training until Wednesday. The game's on Sunday. So you're already 2 days behind in your preparation.
Mm.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't know why the NRL is bowing down to AFL. I really don't. I think it's a joke. I think they are just.
And the difference this year is every single team has to travel after their game back to Sydney.
And if you really wanted to make it even, why didn't you have a 2 o'clock Sunday game and a 4 o'clock Sunday game? Or why don't you have a 4 o'clock and a 6 o'clock Sunday game and play both the prelim finals on the same day?
Yeah.
I don't
Or 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock Friday night.
exactly like I don't get it. I don't. Clearly, there is a TV rating bonanza
Yep.
to be had, and we know that the NRL is pretty much is run by the TV ratings. I don't like it. I feel like if my team was to get through, the Broncos were to win, I would be disappointed. I
Yeah.
would be hopeful that it's not going to cost us the grand final. And I'm sure if Penrith get through and they lose, you'd probably be looking back and saying, well, that short turnaround didn't help us.
Look, well, let's hope that that's, never going to be a defining point. But what I will say, for those who don't know, is every club was consulted,
Apparently.
apparently, except Penrith, about the
Yeah.
extra days. So I don't
Mate,
know.
when you've won 4 comps in a row, no one gives a shit about you.
Everyone's out to get you.
But what I'm going to finish on, and I will tip Brisbane. Obviously, they're my team.
Yeah.
All right. I can't tip against them. I'll tip
Yes.
them. What I will say is that if you think you, as a Broncos supporter, and these 17 players are going to play, if you want any redemption, you're never going to get it from the 2023 grand final. You're never going to get it. But you beat and stop this dynasty on Sunday afternoon. That at least gives you some solace in the fact that you've arguably stopped one of the greatest runs of all time, or definitely of the modern era. And that gives you some comfort then moving forward
I'll be up for it.
in sort of avenging that 2023 grand final. Although you'll never get that back. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Well, what I find also amazing is every single team has something aside from the premiership itself, has something extra that they're using as motivation. You got your Broncos with, the motivation from obviously 2023 stopping a dynasty. You've got Penrith, whose motto at the moment is never before. So no one's ever won outside the top four. So it's a new challenge. There's also lots of players within the Penrith system who haven't actually won a grand final yet, who want to experience that feeling. You've got the Melbourne Storm, who are trying to avenge for last year's grand final loss. Then you've also got the Sharks, who
Who just trying to get there.
yeah, for since 2016 they've offered nothing. So yeah, it's fascinating, Dicko. I can't wait for the weekend. I'm sure everyone's absolutely pumped. I think the final four teams remaining are the best teams left.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
I definitely think so. I think these four are the best teams.
yep, yep.
Yeah, I
With
definitely
its
think so.
highest ceilings, the highest
Yeah,
ceilings teams. And it's going to make for a fascinating watch. So may the best team win, and I can't wait
absolutely.
to see you on Sunday, mate. I'm really
Look forward to it. I really look forward to it, Diz.
rip in. Enjoy.
Enjoy.